supercharged, long-lasting, right? I cannot remember the last time I bought a jug of laundry detergent that said detergent. It's packed with enzymes, tough on stains, easy on clothes. That's what we want. We want better detergent and cereal and batteries and clothes and cars and homes and we do. We want it. But we also want something else, and that's why you are here. Because you are here to affirm that there's something a lot deeper in life than living by those three pretty shallow statements you see on the screen. You could be doing anything else. You could be building a bigger barn right now, but you're not. You're sitting in this beautiful sanctuary saying, I want something more in life. I want to affirm something deeper in life than what I see on the screen. I want to change the things on the screen to read like this. I want to say that I trust God more than I trust myself. You want to say, I care more about your needs than my wants. You're here to affirm that you know who makes life worth living. And there's only one way, and you know this, there's only one way that you can affirm those statements. It's by balancing your desire for bigger and better barns with a desire for a bigger, better heart. Only one way you can affirm those statements on the screen is by being as intentional about building your soul as you are in building your bank account. There is absolutely nothing wrong about building bigger, better barns. What's wrong is if you build those barns while forgetting that there are people who have no barns to sleep in. That's wrong. There's nothing wrong about building bigger, better barns unless you build the barns and you forget that there's a group of people committed passionately to making a difference for Christ in the world. There is nothing wrong about building bigger, better barns unless you build those barns and forget that there are agencies in this city devoted to helping the poor, the hungry, the homeless. There is nothing wrong about building bigger, better barns unless you forget to build your soul at the same time. And you are here today because you are affirming the need to build your soul. That's why you're here. And I want to suggest to you that when you come down and give your promise to God, that is how you are affirming. You're putting your money where your desire is to say, this is what's important. You are affirming that this is what makes life worth living. Not building bigger, better, but building your heart, giving it back to the one who gave it to you in the first place. Freely, lovingly, celebrating it. That's what it's about. That's what you're doing when you're coming down here, to affirm that you want to live by what you see on the screen. And when you do that, something marvelously wonderful happens. And it's not of your own doing, it's just the way it works in the Christian life. As you make a commitment to say, thank you, here's what I'm giving to God's work, something changes in your perception on things, in your passion about things. You start discovering something that's really neat. You start discovering different nuances about this spouse of yours or this friend of yours or this colleague of yours, and you can sort of celebrate that because you've slowed down. You might even start appreciating a sunset better. You might be noticing how a hungry person can smile as you help at Centenary, or how a homeless person is gaining independence, and you see that look and appreciate the beauty of that look on that woman's face at Shalom House. As you give celebrating, you discover even that your prayers seem to be getting into the heart of God, and you can almost hear God's voice a little more clearly. All because you've been intentional about building a bigger heart. And the most amazing thing of all is, the more you're intentional about building that bigger heart, those barns don't seem quite as important anymore. I love the testimony of one family who intentionally prioritized their giving along the lines of values such as the ones you see on the screen. I ran across their story in Weaving's devotional. This family said this: For a number of years, we have been tithing our income and teaching our children to do the same. We give them a regular allowance and help them plan their giving. The result has been a marvelous freedom about money. Tithing and some saving enables us to acknowledge the source of all and then go forward in joyful use of what we have. We give enough to remember who God is and then have a great time on occasion when we can have dinner out. These framework values of rest and giving help us keep perspective, catch our breath, and find joy amidst the pressures of a hectic world. I like this because this family, unlike the rich fool, has it all together. They don't make Freudian slips. They don't talk in first person. They talk in terms of you and us. They don't talk about having a value of pushing everything they can into a day to get that barn. They talk about the value of rest and of enjoyment with each other. Their perspective is not limited to the size of their bank account. Their perspective is unlimited to the panoramic view of this beautiful world. And friends, I want to suggest that is the beauty open to you today, that I want you to celebrate, as in just a couple of minutes, you'll come down and you will give your promises joyfully to God. One of the perks of being a pastor, a preacher, is this. I can talk about my children for hours on end, and you have nothing you can do about it. 7 years of college and seminary have enabled me to do that. Well, so with that in mind, I want to show you a picture of our daughter at 21 months old, Emma. Thank you. Thank you. Now, if you notice carefully in her left hand, there is a yellow object. That yellow object is a fruit chewy. Imagine what would have happened had I come into the house one evening and I said, Emma, I want your candy. Well, let me tell you, whoever came up with the phrase, easy as taking candy away from a baby, never had a baby. Any self-respecting 21-month-old would say, no, mine, and recoil. Of course, they should. But what would happen if I came home one evening when Emma was 21 months old, she greets me at the door, she holds out her hand and says, here you go, Dada, love you. What would I do? Faint. Whoever said that's right, you must have fainted. That's right. But then when I picked myself up off the floor, there'd be a big smile on my face. My heart would have melted because I knew right then and there that my little girl was growing up into being the person I had so hoped that she would be. Friends, God does not come home, does not burst through the door at your house and say, give me your candy. God doesn't do that. God comes into your home because God loves you and wants to be with you. And think of what God feels when you respond with, here you go, Dada, love you. God smiles. So when you give your promise this morning, feel really good that you are becoming the person God has so hoped you would become. Probably it all started with the Lord's Supper. As God gave us that evening gifts that we could never forget.